I volunteer to teach people about Congo. However, I need every single one of you to help me get this video to everyone. So, what is the main issue in Congo? Congo has the world's largest mineral reserves. Congo also has the world's largest cobalt reserve. Cobalt is a very valuable mineral, but Congo does not have the capacity to protect itself from vulture capitalists. So what happens, it is targeted by some of the worst companies and human beings possible.
What's going on, royal family? Welcome back to my channel. Brothers and sisters, where we are having a conversation of what's going on in the motherland and her people. What powers are gunning for our resources, how far they're willing to go to destabilize us and keep us in a position whereby they can continue to exploit, pillage, and plunder, have access to our mineral resources for damn near cheap, if not free, while gaining the privileges of all this black labor. As it was in the days of their transatlantic slave trade and trans-Sahara slave trade, so shall it be in their present era, where they are embracing their heritage in the neo-colonial system, while the rest of us who have been at the receiving end of their atrocities are doing what we can where we can to rise up. As African peoples, we are communicating. We're spreading the stories, we're spreading the news, we're spreading the information, we are gathering. As the divine mothers and fathers of mankind, we are gathering to judge them. We are gathering to protect our ancestors, protect our living families and our future descendants. We're gathering, family. It is where we have conversations that we know. To know each other and to know thyself is the first step to liberation. Technology is the thing that sustains modern day civilization. It has always discerned who is the most powerful and who isn't. With technology, you can define your own destiny. It's a tragedy when you end up not having the mineral resources required to build this glorious civilization, where others have these resources and you have to do evil things to get them. You could not for the life of you get it into your head that fair negotiation was an option. No, they had to do pirate behavior, wicked things. Because to them, the African is in the way. We're just black peoples standing in the way. And they will do what they want to get us out of the way and to get their hands on our resources. I'm a lover of technology. Technology is my jam. But at what price? Are we to advance ourselves by throwing someone else under the bus? Especially our own people? Nah.
Or its minerals. So here's the thing. Cobalt is a mineral that is used in every single device that is chargeable. If that device has a battery, if you can charge that phone, that device, that anything, then it has cobalt. So we're talking about phones, tablets, laptops. We're talking about electric cars. We're talking about planes. We're talking about commercial vehicles. All of those equipments and machinery have cobalt in them. So here's what happens. So when companies want to make extremely large profit margins, what they do is they make sure that the raw material that they're getting is as cheap as possible. And that is what is happening in Congo. In doing that, they are displacing people, killing people, kidnapping, human trafficking, all the above. How do they do this? So these companies are literally funding a militia group called M23. M23 is armed and completely sponsored to cause havoc in Congo. In causing havoc in Congo, what they do is they commit every single atrocity known to human beings and then displace those people. Of course, the government of Congo is going to try and retaliate. In retaliating, causes war. If they cause war, people flee. If people flee, they leave the land that has the cobalt and these companies benefit. And that is how they are doing it.
The power of media and modern day propaganda, they have the ability to make you look like whatever is happening in your country is entirely your fault. That you, African, cannot get yourself together. You, as an African, cannot do the basic things required by any presidency to sustain your own people. You always have to come to the West to beg, to plead, to beg for financial support, for military support, all these things. And it gets old fast because eventually these leaders were going to get together and argue and have the conversations, the hard conversations, where they end up realizing that perhaps they are not the problem. Perhaps there are generational efforts by these corporate powers, going back since colonial days, to keep redefining the narrative that allows them to stay here and be here. The Anglo-Americas, for example. So it's important to begin, if not already be having the conversations as African peoples, to get to the root cause of these things and make better choices for ourselves, choose better, pick better, as they say. Choosing each other will always be the safest bet. I will always prefer a melanated person of African descent either way. Because these companies need to be given the benefit of the doubt. Than us falling into the trap of, well, we know the colonial masters better and we trust them more because at least they have proven competence. Where have they proven competence? Look at your country, look at your economy and ask yourself, where has dealing with these milk-owned corporations been a sign of competence on your behalf? It's been a tragedy.
Now, there are few perpetrators that I have found because I have my notes and I've done my research. So these perpetrators are including number 4. Number 4 on the list is every single big tech company that you know of. That is Samsung, iPhone, X, Tesla, Boeing. Every single company that manufactures every single thing that has cobalt is number 4 on the list. Who is number 3 on the list? Number 3 on the list is China. China has its own cobalt reserve. However, China wants to dominate the industry of cobalt mining. How do they do that? They invest in Congo. And by investing, they try to acquire as much land that has cobalt. You see where I'm going with this, right? Then, number 2 on the list is, to no one's shock whatsoever, United States of America. You guessed it. Of course, they've never been the good guys. You thought they were. They've never been the good guys. The government of the United States of America, particularly the Department of Defense in the US, tries to acquire as much cobalt as possible.
One of the single most greatest threats to Africa right now is Western military-industrial complex. The powers of NATO, they consider North Africa their southern flank. Did you know that? I didn't, but they do. There's nothing more irritating than the phrase US interests in Africa. I cannot stand that phrase.
The number 1 on the list is a company called
Glenco.
Glencore. Glenco is so bad that the United States of America thinks of it as a competitor, so they try to get rid of it. Glenco is so corrupt. And oh, by the way, Glenco is the biggest, emphasis on biggest, largest cobalt miner in the world.
Makes no sense.
They are the devil incarnation. They are the reason Congo is suffering. That is how big and horrible that company is, to a point where USA tried to become a hero. And of course, US just wants to beat China in the domination of cobalt in the entire world. So they had to intervene to look like the good guys. We know them. They've never been that great. However, Glenco is horrible. Okay? And I need you guys to go and do more research on Glenco. They've been taken to court. That is how serious it is. Then we have done.
The tragedy, of course, is that these court cases always end up being quashed. Look at the case against, if you've never heard about it, I think I'll cover it at some point, where Anglo-America was accused of deliberately, if not indirectly, causing the poisoning of 100,000 African children with lead. How crazy is that?
Gatla,
Dan Gatler,
I'll
we've
write
covered
his
him
name
before.
somewhere. This guy has been sanctioned by the US government for causing corruption and causing mayhem. The mayhem I was just talking about, M23. Yeah, these are some of the culprits. So here's the thing. There's also the shareholders of these big companies, the ones I've just named. They're also culprits because they knew. If you're going to start a company, if you're going to work in a company, you need to do your research. In doing the research, they must have figured out where the cobalt was coming from and how they were achieving it at an extremely cheap price. Also, we've all been fooled because guess what? We are buying phones at extremely expensive prices while they're literally buying their raw materials at close to nothing.
And that stretches from cell phone technology to energy, where the French were getting uranium for next to nothing. These are systems that are deeply entrenched and they're so old. You can't claim to be a free African if you don't understand the history of the how and the how these things are perpetuated in the modern day era. It's wild stuff.
We're all being fooled. Every single one of us is a victim at this point. It's not just Congo. Think about it. Here are some facts you may need to know, by the way, before I go. So Congo has 5.6 million internally displaced persons. As of now, that is according to United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The statistics is at 5.6 million. 5.6 million is an extremely huge number. The biggest stadium in the world holds 150,000. That is, so Congo, that is 37 times. Congo's displacement is 37 times the biggest stadium in the world. If you don't understand what 5.6 million is, El Salvador, the smallest country in the world, has 5.6 million. Johannesburg has the exact same number. That the city Johannesburg has 5.6. 5.6 million is larger than the population in Nairobi. It's larger than Cape Town. It's larger than Los Angeles. It's larger than California. Chicago, sorry. Larger than Chicago. That is 5.6 million human beings. Palestine was at 2 million. I'm not trying to compare suffering or anything, but I want you to remember Palestine was like 2 million in Gaza Strip. This is 5.6 million. Yeah, that's more than double that amount. So I hope you understand how serious this thing is.
Very serious indeed. And brothers and sisters, we must be having these conversations as African peoples because in the end, we're all that we have. You cannot negotiate or beg these companies to do the right thing. All they care about is bottom line. All they care about is think about the tech boom from the early 2000s. This is how they built their empires. Microsoft didn't get to where it is because it's just fun to be Bill Gates. iMac did not get to where it is because it was fun to be Steve Jobs. All these tech companies all around the world. Look at Japan, for example. It didn't get to where it is without exploiting Africa. Every one of them had a hand in the chaos on this continent over the past few decades, over the century. So yeah, fam. But knowledge is power, and it begins with us as African peoples having these conversations and sharing what knowledge we can, even for the sake of redundancy. Even when I think I know something, it's nice to hear someone else say it, to make sure that we're not alone. Let me know what you think of the video in the comments below. If you like what you see, like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching, Royal Family, and I will see you in the next one. I'm your host, Ramuidi, said the High King. Stay royal. Peace.